So yeah, I'm not here to, even though I'm from BT, I'm not here to sell you anything today. I'm here to, actually as an enterprise ourselves, we've been doing stuff in this space for a fair number of years. We dabbled with WAP back in the early days. As soon as we had mobile devices that could get email, we were actually receiving email. Then of course security kicked in and we had to change all that. But our real journey started as soon as you could put a SIM card in a laptop. Now, one of the biggest parts of BT is our field force, now known as Openreach. So we've been having mobile-enabled laptops for years, but predominantly driven by desktop applications running over a VPN, etc. So the experience wasn't brilliant. So back in 2010, Openreach took it upon themselves through a small internal team to start looking at what they could do in that space. Now, if you think back to 2010, we're talking about Android 2.1, 2.3, so gingerbread time. We're looking at Windows Mobile 6.5, right? Not really, we say, modern app development platforms. Of course, then there was the iPhone, which was already at the iPhone 4 stage, and things were moving quite quickly in that space. So Openreach decided to look at the iOS platform and decided to put something in place. Now, at this stage, because they were working in isolation, so to speak, the kind of apps they could produce were more read-only type apps. So apps that would help managers know what their engineers were doing, that would help engineers look things up. Typical example, frames engineers, the guys that work in the exchanges actually doing the jumpering and stuff like that. They get 20 to 30 jobs a day. They go to their laptop, write everything down in a notebook, take it with them in their top pocket, and then go up and down ladders, and then go back to the PC and close the jobs off. From a productivity perspective, that worked, but actually the way we feed the data back to our regulator is it's based on the length of the job. So if he's done 20 to 30 jobs, the first job could take 7 hours. Then every other job at the end of the day closes really, really quickly. They weren't interested in going back and apportioning time. So by giving the frames engineers an app that they could actually take their work with them was a great idea. But we still only had half the story. It was still read-only. So they're still having to go back to their laptop at the end of the day and do that piece there. The solution then was very, very simple. We had the iPhone 4. We put a VPN in. It's a VPN we had to set up specifically for the iPhone. We put a very simple gateway in place just to protect our network from the iPhone. We treated the iPhone as an untrusted device. And then basically they put a simple workflow server in place which would take data from our back-end systems, from our MAS platforms, do some interesting stuff in actually preparing it, making it easier to read and to send down to the iPhone. That's where they started. A year later is where I got involved. We had another group of engineers called Operate. They were our internal engineers. And they had a slightly different approach. They wanted to follow the party line. They wanted to sit within the enterprise. So one of the key things I want to try and get across this morning is that as an enterprise, there are lots of companies that are going to try and sell you stuff. No disrespect to our colleagues from AirWatch, etc. But when you're in an enterprise, you have a framework, you have boundaries that you can work to, you have security, you have privacy, all this stuff in place. BT, we're not allowed to put data in the cloud. Okay, it has to be on-prem. We're not allowed to send data in clear space. It has to be over a VPN. These are the constraints that I have to work in. Okay, so we have to think about all this stuff, and it's not as straightforward as just signing up to someone's going to deal with your end-to-end. It's got to fit with your enterprise and what your existing practices and processes are. So Operate wanted to follow the party line. We didn't have a device strategy then, but we knew one was coming, so they wanted something that was more device agnostic. So we went down an HTML5 route, okay? And we built 2 components here. We built one which we call our engineer application server. This was where we did all the intelligent stuff, right? We used the device as a presentation layer. We pulled all the stuff here. And our mobile access layer is what communicated to our back-end systems. So when we got this far, we realized actually, between those 2 separate programs that were running, we started to build up our own mobile best practice for app development. The key thing was to make complex things simple. If you look at the apps in the consumer space, the ones that really work are the ones that make you do things really simply because it's just a tap of a button. What's that song? Oh, I'll just Shazam it. Right? Those are the kind of things. If you can make them simple or at least easier, you're going to have an impact. And this comes back to what Nick was saying earlier. It's this crossover between consumerization and the enterprise. A lot of people, a lot of our employees, our colleagues, use apps. And if you give them something that's overcomplicated, they're going to compare it against what they do on their personal device. And you've got to break that divide down. It's got to adapt to whatever device you're working on. One of the key things for us is let the app control the experience. The apps that work poorest for me is the ones where actually the back end tries to tell the client what to do rather than leaving the client to decide, hang on, I haven't got a network. I won't allow the user to do this kind of stuff. We want to preserve battery life. This was very key in our field forces, right? That device is going to be with them all day. They don't want to keep charging it up. You don't want to run out of power halfway through the day and find that they can't do their job. As I said, be network aware. Know that you've got connectivity. Know whether you've got internet, whether you've got intranet, whether you've got secure capabilities. And let the app decide what to do based on the state of your network. Be bandwidth frugal. We call this simplification. Effectively, don't send data down to the device that the engineer doesn't need. Right? That costs money. Data costs money. Right? Even for a telco, it costs us money. Right? So keep it simple. Be service agnostic. We call this enrichment. Don't tie the client to your back-end system. Just send name, value pairs back and have the middleware do all that stuff. If you then change your back-end components, it doesn't impact the app. Know your power source. Are you running on battery? Are you plugged into a charger of some sort? Adapt your app to work in those situations. Then we have something which we've called internally our disconnected device principle. Most enterprise systems expect the device that sends the request to be there when the request finishes. We've all done stuff. We expect this big fat piece of Ethernet cable to be plugged into our machines and it to be there. As soon as you tether your work laptop to a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot or sit on a train and doing stuff, you break that. Disconnected device principle says, hang on, okay, you sent the request, we're now going to disconnect. The app now takes back control of what's going on. We'll let the back-end system do what it needs to, and then the device, based on all of the above, when it thinks it's capable, it will come back and collect the data. It gives a much more richer and predictable customer experience. So moving forwards, we took what we did in Operate, which gave us the read-write capability, and we offered it to Openreach. So now all their read-only apps became read-write apps. We also rolled out Windows 8.0 when it was in pre-release to about 15,000 Openreach engineers. Started to move our desktop estate towards an app-based experience, although we're still heavily using desktop apps. And around that time, the red diamond there was when we actually produced the first version of our own mobile strategy. So we were starting to think about the strategy for the wider BT. So all we did for Openreach is we took our back-end systems, our engine application server and our mobile access layer, and just plugged their stuff into it. Right? They didn't want to rewrite all that stuff. We just treat them as a client of mobility. So you can see we're starting to build a picture up here, but it's starting to, there's lots of boxes in the way here. So moving forward again to 2013, I've put SharePoint 2013 on there because part of our mobile strategy document was that actually it should be web first, native last. Okay, you get the device agnostic. You get things working everywhere. You can do it in a browser. You're not tied to Android, iOS, etc. So we deployed SharePoint 2013, and we ensured all the mobile stuff was enabled, even though we weren't actually using it at that time. We did the mass rollout to the whole of Openreach. So basically, the pilot had ended. So the line from Windows 8 up to the main line for Openreach there is where we gave them that. For the desktop, we gave them the engineer.com, which is our HTML5 approach, while the iPhone engineers were using the native apps. We had a similar approach as far as our app development was concerned as well. Updating apps has been notoriously bad inside BT. Okay, now we've got push updates going on, but in the early days you didn't have push updates. So we used a lot of templating. So we actually developed templates and had a very configurable back end. So actually you could push an app out once and you'd only have to update it once in a blue moon. You know, we call it zero-day delivery. So if we launched a new product today, the templates for that new product would already be on the server. The first time he gets a job, he can handle that product. we've had horror stories of it taking 9 months for a new product to reach every engineer in Openreach who could actually install it. So we needed to solve that problem quite badly. So we introduced the desktop. So effectively, it's the same diagram we had before, but now we've got the desktop coming into our estate there. We also started talking to another group of engineers. That's our facility services, BTFS. They wanted to mobilize their workforce. They were still working on faxes in 2013. Okay, we had to bring them into the modern age. They took the engineer.com solution and they actually used that on a mobile device. That's where the Windows Phone 8.1 story is. Towards the end of last year, we actually, considering back in 2011, BT Operate were waiting for our mobile device strategy. It arrived 3 years later. So we decided that as an enterprise, we were going to go for Windows Phone 8.1. So BTFS became our trial partner for that, and we moved forward. The center line there, we now talk about MBAS, Mobile Backend as a Service. Now, the key thing here is, again, look at what you've already got in your estate as an enterprise. Okay, there might be stuff you can already reuse that's already been cleared for security, meets all your capabilities, etc. So you don't have to go and buy stuff to actually fulfill your capability. If you apply the 80-20 rule, if you've got 80% of what you already need, you apply the 20% to actually develop to make it capable. So this is the vision. We're starting to implement it now. Rather than apps talking to those individual components, we've got this service gateway, which we've got bought from a company called Vordel. Again, BT is a big company. We've been dealing with lots of other companies for many years, and we do lots of B2B stuff. We had an XML gateway. We enhanced that. We replaced it with this solution from Vordel, which brought into it REST and OAuth. So actually, we've already paid for that exposure, so we can actually do those capabilities. Behind that, we already have an enterprise service bus. All our back-end systems talk to this enterprise service bus. In fact, our mobility platforms that you see in the purple there were already talking to the enterprise service bus. So actually, we was doing things in a kind of roundabout face way. Instead of this being, a linear approach to stuff, once we go down this route, we make everything available to everything behind the scenes. So we can replace these things, we can update these things. And the boxes in purple belong to the part of the business. So if another part of the business wants to then get involved in mobile, they could add their own capability. We're not applying all the pressure and saying, actually, it's the enterprise service bus that has to do all the business logic. They just provide the throughput. The part of the business that does the work actually owns the capability. Hope this is making sense. The key thing about what we're doing with our MBAS is all the stuff you saw in the best practice slide earlier, we're implementing in one place. So we're taking everything we've learned from what we've done over the field for the last 5 years and bringing it to the rest of the enterprise. The story there is that if you think about it, the most important employees in BT are not the salespeople, not the account managers, etc. As far as I'm concerned, they're the engineers. Right? We can sell as many phone lines and broadband connections as you like, but if the engineer can't install it, if he can't get the data he needs to install it, we end up with bad customer experience, etc. If that system goes offline for any period of time, we've got fines to other service providers, we've got fines to Ofcom, etc. So we need to keep it up and running. If we can solve the mobility problem for this highly demanding workforce, actually bring it to the enterprise means we actually solve most of the problems. So coming forward to this year, we've got a couple of things going on. Our B2B Operate guys have rebranded themselves as IXD. They're actually taking the Windows Phone solution, so we're starting to get some convergence there. Our intranet is huge. When I joined BT in 1998, we already had a very big intranet already, and that's just grown and grown and grown over the years. But as soon as you connect it to a mobile device, it falls to pieces, because everything's still dock mode based and IE7. Right? So we've got to start doing stuff. That's where the SharePoint story comes in, it's where MBAS comes in. And we've got an intranet homepage. And the intranet homepage basically tells us all our news and all that kind of stuff. But at the moment, it's still a web page. We want to turn that into a web app, coming back to our web-first strategy. It has to work offline. It has to work. It will depend on MBAS to get services, etc., and stuff like that. But this will be the first instance where we actually bring mobility to the entire workforce, whether it be on desktop, tablet, smartphone, etc. So you can see the numbers of people we're trying to reach, going from the few hundreds up to several thousands, or tens of thousands, is starting to see the impact our mobility strategy is having on the business. We're also doing a lot of work with Windows 10 already. Windows 10 provides us a huge amount of opportunity. We've got this iPhone development going on over here. We've got this Windows development going on over here. Now we standardize on Windows for our mobile devices. Windows 10 is obviously going to follow with the things with Microsoft's universal application platform. We can write an app once and it will work on smartphone, tablet, PC, Xbox if we wanted to, right? So we actually lower the cost of our development capability. We can also take out all the infrastructure we put in specifically for Openreach, because it all's now coming down back to our standard enterprise VPN and connectivity solution. So we can take a lot of waste out, and we actually come down with a much more refined solution going there. And then going forwards from there, what I'm lovingly referring to, BT as a service. So using the MBAS layer and creating this common capability for, that's mobile aware and able to do what we've developed over years through our field force automation capabilities. We can now have a single exposure layer for all BT systems. So we can have app developers writing stuff that I haven't even dreamed of yet. I mean, it's not new. Google, remember the Google mashup term? Release a bunch of services, have the developers go and do it. Works great publicly. Try and do that yourself internally. Well, that's what BT as a service is. We're using our MBAS, our mobile backend as a service, to create this exposure layer that will allow app developers to actually build things we haven't even dreamt of yet. I'm around for the day. I'm not sure if we've got time for questions, etc. But if we haven't got time for questions, I'll be around. Just
quick question.
Yeah.
This is internal BT.
Yes.
Good experiences and bad experiences, but you know, if it takes several hour calls with a call center in India, you receive a text, you can't reply to a text, you never receive any paperwork. I mean,
so
at what point is BT going to engage with customers better?
Okay, that's I think is that about apps or is that BT as a whole? Let me put that into an app context, right? Okay, so if I go back to that diagram. Which one should I go to? This one here. Our service gateway is available both red and green side, right? So the kind of exposure layer we're talking about is available internally and externally. The best practices we're putting in place, we're already starting to now to write our consumer apps, our public-facing apps using the same capability. So what we've actually enabled ourselves to do is provide ourselves with a single framework. That means that customer-facing apps will give a good experience as far as the app is concerned, right? Now, whether we can deliver the services that you require over that experience is something else. We're looking to launch a MyBT app, so you can actually go in and manage your account and stuff like that. All the stuff you think you can do on bt.com right now, but to try and make that experience better.
We have to stop there, unfortunately. We're under really tight. Unless you can get it, is it a short? Go on then.
Go on then, try me.
Quick. Go for it.
Who owns all the devices? Are they BT?
Yes, they're all BT-owned devices.
There you go, really short.
We do have a BYOD strategy. The BYOD strategy is actually based on the Openreach stuff. Because it's treated as an untrusted device, we're using good technologies on there. So the work we did to put that platform in place has allowed us to deliver a BYOD strategy using good.